I have my friends over at Patins ready to share what they've been doing for eons for Indiana. I told Jenna and company that I was quite familiar with Patins by name, but did not until this moment know exactly what it was that they did for a lot of Indiana educators, and I would guess the same is true for you. So without further ado, let me bring my friends up here and I'll let Jenna introduce her teammates. But first and foremost, I want to thank Patins for being a part of this event, and I'm excited to get you all likewise excited for what they're going to share next week on the 14th and 15th at the event. But this video will be live on YouTube. Indefinitely on demand. If you would like to refresh this, share it with your administrator if you're a classroom teacher, or share it with your teachers if you're an administrator. And I'm going to shut my mouth now and pass the mic to Jenna. Jenna, tell us all about Patins.
All right. Hi, I'm Jenna Fallbush. I am one of the Patins specialists. And with me today, I have two stakeholders in the room, as well as our director of the project. We will also have a third stakeholder joining us in just a little bit. So we have Mandy Hall. We also have Regina Balish, and then our director, Daniel McNulty. And I'll kick it over to him to share where Patins came from, how we were born.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenna. Again, my name is Daniel McNulty, and I'm the director of the Patins Project. And Patins has started in like 1995 as an assistive technology project in the state of Indiana. And of course, the thought and the hope was that in 5 years, that assistive technology would be in Indiana local education agencies, and Patins could be doing something else. And of course, a lot has evolved and changed since then, but we still have a lot to learn and implement about assistive technology. So Patins is one of those acronyms, and it stands for Promoting Achievement Through Technology and Instruction for All Students. So it's not just about the assistive technology, it's about the implementation and the coaching and the instructional strategies as well. So the ICAM is the other acronym on the screen, and that's the ICAM. That's the Indiana Center for Accessible Materials, which is part of the Patins Project as well. And really what we're all about is universally designed access and engagement and participation for all students and staff in the state of Indiana's public local education agencies. And that is our mission. And to serve that mission, we provide really 10 big services. And the 10 big services are statewide annual conferences that we have each year. We provide a lot of training and technical support and consultations. We do an Aiming for Achievement grant to about 15 to 18 school districts each school year. And we have the Indiana Center for Accessible Materials, or the ICAM, an assistive technology lending library. We have an e-newsletter, and we do a blog, and we do a Tuesday night Twitter chat. We also have Patins TV video tutorials that are on YouTube 24/7. A refurbished technology program, and a lot of technical assistance, which can include coaching from our staff in your classrooms, either virtually and or in person. So universal design for learning is really sort of our umbrella or our filter that everything else comes through. And within that lens of universal design, we also look at accessible educational materials, which are things like Braille and large print and digital versions, accessible versions of textbooks. So it could be EPUBs and PDFs and audio versions of textbooks. And assistive technology, or AT. And when we talk about universal design for learning, we're really talking about 3 bullet points: multiple and flexible ways of engaging our learners, multiple and flexible ways of presenting information to our learners, and multiple and flexible ways of allowing our learners to play with information in their minds and to respond to it to show what they know. And then accessible educational materials, or AIM. And this is sort of what our Aiming for Achievement grant is all about as well. And they're different versions, specialized versions, accessible versions of materials, whether it be textbooks or other materials. It's the same content, and that's important to keep in mind. It's the exact same content, just presented in specialized or accessible versions. And those all come through our Indiana Center for Accessible Materials, or the ICAM. And all services through the ICAM and through Patins in general are at no charge for Indiana public schools. So one of our favorite quotes and one of our favorite people is Judy Heumann. And she says, for people without disabilities, technology can make things really convenient. Whereas for people with disabilities, it sometimes makes things possible. And so that's an important distinction and a difference between universal design for learning and assistive technology. Whereas UDL, stuff's built in. It's there if we need it or if we want to use it, which just makes things better and maybe sometimes possible. But assistive technology, on the other hand, is required, and it should be in a student's IEP if it's a requirement for them to make things possible within their educational environment. So we do have an assistive technology lending library where we loan out assistive technology for 6 weeks at a time for school districts to try. And we ship it to you. We even pay for you to ship it back to us. We ship it to you, and then we don't just leave it there. We've got 8 great specialists that can provide support and training on those devices as well. And this is the team, and it truly is built to serve Indiana public LEAs in the best way possible. We're a small team, a highly dedicated and passionate staff, though, and so reach out to us. And if we don't hear back in 24 hours, reach out again. We want to help, and we want to hear from you, and we want to respond. And of this team, we've got 8 specialists, and they all specialize in different areas, and they're charged with truly being the best and experts in the state and in these areas. And I encourage you definitely to reach out to these specialists. And amongst these specialists, Jenna Fallbush is one who we have with us today. And Jenna, I will turn it over to you to talk a little bit about what you do and why you do it.
Thanks, Daniel. So this is Jenna Fallbush again, and I am so grateful to be a part of the Patins Project as one of our 8 training specialists. My areas of expertise include intensive interventions for students with autism, low incidence disabilities, accessible content authoring, accessible materials, or rather digital content creation on the web and in Microsoft tools and products. And I also support elementary academics and making them universally accessible. So being a part of this team means that we can come to you and do consultations in your classroom. We can suggest assistive technologies or strategies or instructional technologies that would improve the access for all the students in your classroom. And today with me, I mentioned we have 3 stakeholders who have had some awesome success stories through our partnerships together. And they are here to share those stories with you, in addition to some pictures of the actual students and some with teachers as well. So first, I'm going to introduce you to Regina Balish, and she's going to share her story about augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC devices, and the successes she's had in her classroom. Welcome, Regina.
Hi, well, thank you. My name is Regina Balish, and I am a kindergarten through 2nd grade intensive intervention teacher at Griffith Public Schools. I just learned that Patins started in 1995, which means that I got in on the very beginning of it because it was housed at the school district I was in at that point in time. And so I've been familiar with Patins and have taken advantage of a lot of the services it's offered over the years. Today, I'm going to talk about the lending library, but I've also attended conferences and workshops, especially now that they're virtual and much easier to get to. And a couple of years ago, I was also able to work with a consultant and work on a team to help a student find the best direction for his communication. So we were working one-on-one with a consultant. So another great experience through Patins. So I've had lots of experiences over the years. This year, I started a new job, and I moved from a high school intensive intervention classroom to a kindergarten through 2nd. And I moved to a new district that didn't have a lot of experiences with augmentative communication. I've used it over the years with several students, and so I had some and got on board and borrowed TD Snap on the iPad from the lending library. With Sherry helping me out, it was really easy. And the first day we got it, I plugged it in to charge it up and couldn't wait to use it. So I had my students sitting around me in a circle, and we were requesting snacks. I just had little candy out because that's where we start with it. And so I had little candies out, and they were requesting, and my principal walked in and happened to see it. And she goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I told you I was borrowing this device." And she goes, "They're using sentences." And I said, "Yes, they are." And she goes, "They haven't been able to talk." And I said, "No, they haven't." And so immediately there was when we decided to purchase several copies. I requested 6 copies for those in my classroom of TD Snap, and we actually purchased 10 of them for the district for a couple other students. So through the year, I have had some great success with the students, meant in different varying levels because all students are going to progress at different ways. A couple of my students are now at the point where we are requesting independently or requesting with help. In this picture, we are working on requesting at breakfast what they wanted for breakfast, whether they wanted cereal or juice or milk. And so they are working. In October, the fire department came and we had just gotten our devices. And so we were learning how to communicate with others by talking to the fire department. One of the things that I work really hard on is that when we have a device for communication, we work to make sure that it's a communication device and it's not an iPad. It's a dedicated device just for communication, to make sure that those students always have access to it. So, and a couple of my students have made really good success. One of them, he is able to request independently. If he needs something, he'll use his device to tell us what he needs. When he is upset, we have just started to, if he's upset and he's mad or angry, we'll pull his device over and help him go to the feelings page and say, how are you feeling today? And he can tell us how he is feeling. And that de-escalates him. So his behavior really has reduced. So we've seen not only great progress in their communication skills, but also in their behavior, because behavior is communication. And if they're not able to tell us in traditional ways, then they're going to tell us some way. Another one of my students who didn't start using it until December because he didn't come to my classroom, he was down to 1 hour a day in gen ed until we could get him services because he had a lot of behaviors which were prohibitive to the gen ed classroom. We figured out what his triggers were, and we've been able to work with him to use his device to say, please stop, I don't like that. Because his triggers are saying no and saying quiet, which are behaviors that are things that are going to happen in a classroom anyway. And so we can't eliminate those, so we can teach him how to communicate and tell us that he doesn't like it or that he's uncomfortable. And usually just expressing that helps him. So those are my success stories. I always tell my parents that my goal is to teach myself out of a job. And the communication devices are what help us do that. My goal is to get my kiddos back into the gen ed as much as possible and accessing that education.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Regina. Those are such great successes with your students because, as you mentioned, behavior is communication. And when we can open up and get our students' voices, wow, what a game changer.
Absolutely.
Up next, we have Mandy Hall, who's going to share a success story with a general ed class. So this is really exciting because so many gen ed teachers, like myself in my past life, that's where I came from before Patins, they don't know that Patins can serve all students and that we are really here for every student regardless of an IEP. The only part of our project that requires that documented print disability or disability is the ICAM, that Indiana Center for Accessible Materials. Otherwise, we are here for you as Indiana public educators. So Mandy, tell us your story.
Thanks, Jenna. So I'm a speech language pathologist over at Lewis Cass Schools, and we recently hired a new director this year, and she came in with so much passion and information about universal design for learning. The new leadership, we've changed the culture in our building. It's been a slow change. We have a lot of veteran teachers that have been teaching 25, 30. We have one that's been teaching 40 years. And so, their idea is, kids with IEPs should be in a different classroom, or, I don't know how to teach them. We have a fairly new first grade teacher who's amazing that you can see here on the screen. And I love how you just highlighted the little box around. So she got on board with using the Universal Design for Learning, the UDL, and she has quite a few kids in her room that do have IEPs. And the one thing that we have really pushed from our new director is all of our students are Lewis Cass students first, and they are special education students second. And so no matter what the disability was that was within her classroom, you could walk in her classroom or view the video, and you wouldn't know which kid had an IEP and which didn't. And so my director was sharing some of the other technology devices that we can use from the Patins Lending Library. I have been borrowing a lot of AAC devices, and she shared a Red Cat, and I had never heard of it. And so she said, why don't you go ahead and request one and find a teacher that is willing to have it in her classroom. And so I immediately went to this first grade teacher and I was like, all right, we're going to try this. And she looked at me and was like, what are you doing to me? Why do you want me to wear this? Why are we putting a speaker in my room? Why do I have to wear this thing? Literally after the first day, she came down to my room and she said, oh my gosh. She said, I turned that microphone on and the kids immediately just were directed towards me. She said that if she had the microphone off and she were to speak to her classroom to have them transition or ask for lunch count, none of them responded. And then she turned the microphone on and she's like, I immediately got all of their attention. And so she realized, that she could click it on and off. And it was super important during that first part of the day when they're kind of noisy and playing. And then I told her, I said, why don't you try it during your OG lesson? So she clicks the mic on and she had the most beautiful OG lesson. I sat in the back with a student that I pushed in to support. And I mean, the engagement that her students had, even my director, I showed her the video and she's like, I cannot even believe, she said, it's literally the most beautiful thing that we've seen in a classroom with a population that she has in her room. And so then she started talking to the other general education teachers and she was like, oh yeah, you should see this thing that Mandy brought me. And they're all kind of like, why would you want to do that? I don't want one of those in my room. And the more she talked and shared and, just how it changed her classroom, the dynamics of her classroom, the engagement, she was starting to get some more of our gen ed teachers on board who were maybe kind of had a bad attitude about it at first. And so they were begging, like, can we please put it in our classroom? We want to try it next. Long story short, we kind of ran out of time because we had to get it sent back. But luckily, our director applied for a grant. And we now have 26 Red Cats coming to our corporation this year. And we have a total of 24 gen ed classrooms. So we actually have a Red Cat for every gen ed classroom in our building. And I think I would say about 80% of our gen ed staff is going to be really excited. We may have a little bit of pushback from some, and it'll take a little coaxing to get them on board. Like I said, it's slow and steady progress to change that culture. We're in a really small rural community, and the change is hard, but change can be good too. And we see a lot of good things happening in our corporation. So I'm excited about it. I'm so glad that this first grade teacher was willing to take that leap of faith with me. And awesome things are going to happen next year.
That's right. Thanks so much, Mandy. That's awesome. I love your story and the fact that the other teachers were so engaged. Like, what's going on? Why is this working? I want this for my classroom. That's what's exciting when when it just spreads through word of mouth and through seeing what the kids are getting out of the new tech or the new tools that are being included to really provide universal access. And getting them for your classrooms, for the whole, for all 24 classrooms is incredible. So thank you for sharing your story. And last but not least, we have Brooke Mcdonald, and something that Mandy just said, slow and steady is success and it is progress. And Brooke has been a part of an Aiming for Achievement grant team, and grant teams can be accepted 3 years, and they have made some awesome progress through the time that we've worked together. So I'm going to let Brooke share her story, and I'll let you take it away.
All right. Hi there. Like she said, my name is Brooke Mcdonald. I am an occupational therapist in Perry Township Schools, and I work with students from first grade through 12th grade. I've worked with Patins for many years using the lending library, but I more closely with the Patins team over the last 2 years as a member of that AIM grant team. Through this grant, we've gotten so much training and so many tools to help us increase student access to their education. The main focus, of course, has been on UDL to help students engage in their education based more on their individual learning strengths. That's been a learning change, I think, for a lot of us in the township. And so it's been really important for us to help educate people that all students need to be allowed access to multiple strategies for learning and showing their knowledge, and not just the students with the IEPs. And I think that's been a big piece of this team that we've been able to push out into our schools. As part of the UDL process, all of the students in Perry Township have access to tools such as text-to-speech and speech-to-text to support their learning. There are lots of different programs that offer these tools, but we use Read and Write right now in our district. one of my kiddos that we've been really proud of has had occupational therapy for a long time. She's in 4th grade. She's mastered legible printing. She's great at that, but she can only write sentences that are spelled aloud for her. Her cognition has just not progressed as quickly with spelling as it has with some other things. She's tried typing, but even word prediction wasn't enough support. Her spelling just wasn't close enough for the computer to pick up on what she was trying to type. As a result, she was not able really to participate in any grade level writing without adult support. So sometimes if she didn't have support in the classroom, she would just have to sit there and work on a different type of activity, that was pretty hard on her. This year, we started using speech to text with her, and very quickly she was independent with it. Before speech to text, really, she couldn't even write one legible sentence on a grade level topic. With speech to text, she was almost instantly able to produce 5 and 6 sentences on one topic. She was so excited to be able to do this. And we learned pretty quickly after she started that speech to text was going to be offered on iLearn. So she was right on board with trying that out. I think the best story is that on the first day of practice testing, the speech to text tool wasn't working. On her Chromebook, we could not figure out why, but she was so motivated to use it on the test that she stopped me every time she saw me in the hallway to find out if we had gotten it fixed yet. And this is a very quiet little girl who does not tend to advocate for herself, kind of happy to fall into the background, but she loved it that she could finally do those things on her own. We did finally figure it out, and she was able to complete the written portion of that test for the first time. She was so proud of herself and happy to tell everybody about it. And we're just excited that this is a tool that she'll be able to use as she moves forward in the school. We're just thrilled to have found a strategy that she's excited about using, and it allows her to show her knowledge in a more independent way. So she's not dependent on those adults around her. She can actually just participate in her classroom. So we're very thankful. Patins has given us access to and training on really the most up-to-date tools and materials to help with all of our students, not just our kiddos in special education. So they have so much more access to their education, and we're just really lucky to have their support.
Thanks, Brooke. That's awesome. I love that you shared your story as well. These are just 3 of those examples of ways that Patins can support you. And I know Daniel's got some things ready for you as to how you can connect with us.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think one of the reasons we all love our jobs so much is we hear stories like these all the time, and they're so great. And so if you're interested in what other schools have done and successes they've had, reach out to us. We can connect you with other schools. And thank you to the 3 of you so much for being so willing to share your stories. And we're willing to take questions all the time, but right now as well. But connect with us going forward, and lots of ways to do it. So follow our Patins Ponders blog. It's a little bit more less formal way of the Patins staff to kind of let you know who we are and why we do what we do and why we're passionate about this work. And that happens usually every Thursday, so about once a week. The Patins Newsletter, sign up for that. It's digital. You don't have to remember to come back to our website. Once you're subscribed, it comes to your inbox about once a month, unless there's big announcements that are happening. And then Patins TV, check us out on YouTube. Hundreds and hundreds of video content there. Most of them are short, like 5 minutes or so or less, that are accessible 24/7. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. Also on Tuesday evenings, we have a Twitter chat from 8:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. So just for half an hour, covering all of these sorts of topics: universal design for learning, assistive technology, and accessible educational materials. Also coming up in the fall, November 2nd and 3rd, we have our annual Access to Education Conference, and we're having that downtown again at the Crown Plaza, downtown Indianapolis. And then in spring, save the date, April 20th, is our Patins Tech Expo. And soon,
you can also find myself and my colleague Kelly Suding presenting at the Keep Indiana Learning Conference on June 15th. Kelly is presenting the top 9 things paraprofessionals can do to support students at 9 a.m. And I will be following her up around 10 a.m. for Digital Does Not Equal Accessible. Learn how to reshape and renew your content in Canvas to make it universally accessible for all students. We can't wait to see you there. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you, Jenna, and thank you to the whole team. Oh my goodness, hearing these testimonies was super encouraging, inspiring, and reminds me of why we're in this field in particular, to make sure that all learners have access to what makes them grow. And so whether you're looking for UDL support in your district, do not let Patins be the best kept secret in Indiana. Make sure that you're taking advantage of all these subsidized resources that you're attending, and you're sending, if you're an administrator, teachers to these events so that you can learn and grow your own practice. Once again, thanks to you guys for being a part of this conference. It means so much to us, and I hope you have a great week next week during the event. Otherwise, be sure to share this video with your administrators, teachers, and teachers or administrators share this with your teachers, because what these guys are doing is incredibly important and of the moment. So once again, thank you and goodbye to everybody. We'll see you next time.